Starting off this countdown at number 10, the Cody Road Bridge. The Cody Road Bridge in northern Kentucky is a railroad bridge that runs over Cody Road, right at the point where a creek runs under the road. So you have the bridge running above you, and the road dips somewhat below it. With the creek and low road, this area is prone to flooding when the creek rises. Flooding here is such a common occurrence that swinging gates have been permanently placed on either side of the creek, marked with stop signs to be closed whenever the water starts to rise. The legends of this area revolve around a woman that passed away in one of the following ways, depending on who you ask. The first one is by taking her own life, either by jumping in front of an oncoming train on the bridge or by jumping from the bridge. The second one is running for help from her burning home that was near the bridge, but got hit by a train in the process. And the last one is getting caught in the current when the road quickly flooded below the bridge, either while in her car or while walking. Reports from this area are often of a woman in white walking the bridge, sometimes crying. Others say yelling for help. Orbs, phantom trains, and disembodied voices are also reported here. Some locals refer to the phantom as pig face, supposedly referring to her injuries after going head to head with the train. Now on to number 9, Narrows Road. Narrows Road in Angler, Kentucky is supposedly where a ghostly police officer likes to hang out. According to urban legend, while making a traffic stop here sometime in the 50s, he was struck and passed away by a passing car. So now, if you drive along Narrows Road after midnight, or at exactly midnight in some tellings, a 1950s style police cruiser will appear and pull you over. Some versions of the legend say the officer will then come to your car, speak to you, then disappear after walking away, while others say he disappears before even reaching you. Number 8, Hillbilly Beast. In the back hills of eastern Kentucky near the Ohio River, something stalks through the trees. Many locals believe that the mysterious creature is the Hillbilly Beast of Kentucky, a Bigfoot-like entity. This creature is said to be gigantic and hairy, smells horrid, glides when it runs, and has yellow eyes and a ferocious howl. Reports of this terrifying monster date back to the days of Daniel Boone, but increasing encounters provided enough interest that History's channel Monster Quest featured the Hillbilly Beast in an episode aired on their 4th season. Number 7, Hot Rod Haven. The place known to local folks as Hot Rod Haven is actually a stretch of Mitchell Hill Road. During the period between the 1940s and the 1970s, the road was a popular spot for teenagers to test not only their racing skills but their bravery as well. However, many of them did not come back from the road alive. Mitchell Hill Road is a winding and twisting road that, over time, has reportedly claimed the lives of more than 25 people in the area. As the driver travels down the hill, they come out of the curves into a short straightaway that abruptly switches back into a banking left turn. Prior to reaching the turn, cars were able to reach very high speeds, which often results in tragedy. Legend has it that a young woman and her date were on their way to a dance on the night of September 23, 1950, when they crashed at the bottom of the hill and passed away. Since that time, reports claim that the girl has been seen wandering the roadway and aimlessly strolling the cemetery at the top of the hill. It was here that she was buried side by side with her young lover. The cemetery at the top of the road is a private burial ground for several local families, most notably the Mitchell and Griffin families. Over the years, the ghostly girl has been dubbed both Sarah and Mary by those who've seen the apparition on the road at night. Number 6, the Hopkinsville Goblins. The Hopkinsville Goblins can also be known as the Little Kelly Green Men. This urban legend came directly from a pair of grandparents who live in Oak Grove and wanted to share the legend. Apparently, there was an alien invasion back in the 1950s. A family had reported that they had encountered little green men that they had been battling. The town did what any responsible town does and decided to host a festival in honor of these guys called Kelly Little Green Men Days Festival. Halfway, number 5, the Poplick Monster. Outside of Louisville on Poplick Creek, a rickety bridge crosses the water. But beware before you step on it. You may become the next victim of the Poplick Monster. Numerous urban legends exist about this creature's origins and the methods that it employs to claim its victims. According to some accounts, this creature uses either hypnosis or voice mimicry to lure trespassers onto a bridge to meet their end before an oncoming train. Other stories claim the monster jumps down from the bridge onto the roofs of cars passing beneath it. Yet other legends say it attacks its victims with a blood-stained axe, and that the very sight of the creature is so unsettling that those who see it while walking across the high bridge are driven to leap off and take their own life. Whether it's the work of a monster or just due to unfortunate accidents, there's no denying that this is a pretty scary legend. Number 4, Sleepy Hollow Road. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, you have to agree that calling anything Sleepy Hollow is a surefire way to end it with something spooky on your hands. Sleepy Hollow Road, located outside of Prospect, is home to a few urban legends, but I'm just gonna talk about the main one. one. The Louisville Ghost Hunter Society had investigated a trio of tall tales that took place along Sleepy Hollow Road near Prospect in Louisville. It said that a black hearse appears out of nowhere, speeds up, and causes drivers to run off the road and crash into a ravine 30 feet below. Cries and screams have been heard under what used to be a covered bridge, called Crybaby Bridge, while settlement women went to allegedly toss their unwanted or sickly children that they couldn't or didn't want to care for. And during the 1970s and 1980s, it is rumored that satanic rituals were performed at Devil's Point. Number 3. The Allendale Train Tunnel. The Allendale Train Tunnel is located south of Cincinnati in the woods behind the Allendale Trailer Park in Ellesmere, Kentucky. Years ago, legend says that a man hung himself from a hook that is set above the tunnel entrance and that his ghost is said to walk the tunnel, or some say appears still hanging from the hook. There are also reports of disembodied voices, as well as screams coming from inside the tunnel. There is sometimes confusion with finding it because it's known as a train tunnel but no trains run through it. It's actually a tunnel for the stream that runs under the tracks. To reach it, you must enter through the woods, travel down a hill, and follow the stream to reach the creepy location that's covered in spray paint and littered.
Check that out there. And I'm thinking that's one of the hooks. Looks like it got broke. Yeah, it's definitely one of the hooks there. So if someone did hang themselves, why would?
Number 2. The Headless Woman. If you go to Louisville's 739-acre Iroquois Park in the middle of the night, you might spot a ghastly apparition. People who live in Kentucky have said to have heard about the Headless Horseman growing up, but not the Headless Woman of Kentucky. According to the legend, she can be found in Iroquois Park in Louisville. The story is told that a farmer's wife was alone while her husband was away on work and her home was attacked by an Indian tribe, and it's said that they took the life of her and her dog. The legend is that she can be seen after dark just as a thick fog rolls in, roaming the grounds and holding her head. Now coming in at number 1, the Witch Girl of Pilot's Knob. Just looking at the pictures of young Mary Evelyn Ford's grave feels a bit unnerving, with a series of interlocking white crosses forming a fence around a pit of gravel and the bars appearing unnaturally bent in some places. Then you hear the alleged backstory. A mother and daughter both accused of witchcraft and burned at the stake in 1916, with the mother's charred remains being carried to a far-off location while the daughter was buried in a steel-lined coffin covered in stone and encased in crosses to prevent her escape. Some have claimed to witness tiny footprints appearing in the gravel, or even a young ghostly figure trying to escape the gravesite. Kid ghosts, as we know, are the creepiest ghosts, no doubt.
At number 10 spot, we have the Tommyknockers. The legend of the Tommyknockers originates from the state of New Mexico. The legend follows a group of miners when they stumbled upon a strange and powerful object buried deep within the earth. As they began to excavate it, they were overcome by its strange energy, which transformed them into these bizarre, violent creatures. These creatures were known as the Tommyknockers and were infamous for their ability to knock on the walls and ceilings of mines, warning other miners to stay away. The legend goes on to say that the Tommyknockers were incredibly powerful, with superhuman strength and the ability to control the minds of those around them. They all roamed the mines, causing destruction and mayhem wherever they went. Despite their fearsome reputation, some believe that the Tommyknockers could be reasoned with, and attempted to communicate with them in order to understand their motivations. While some people, on the other hand, believe that the legend of the Tommyknockers is based on a real event that occurred in New Mexico, which had a bunch of trapped miners. However, others viewed a purely fictional tale. Over the years, many people have come forward to speak about their encounter with the Tommyknocker, which only adds to this creature's mystery more. At a number 9 spot, we have a witch's heart. The legend of the witch's heart in New Mexico tells the story of a powerful witch who lived in the forest near a small village. She was said to be able to cast spells and control the elements, and many people were afraid of her because of that. One day, the witch fell in love with a young man from the village, and she cast a spell on him to make him fall in love in return. The young man, however, did not want to be with this witch and tried to resist her spell at all costs. The witch became very angry and threatened to destroy the village if the young man did not return her love. Talk about needy. The villagers, who were afraid for their lives, pleaded with the young man to give in to the witch's demands, but the young man was brave and refused to give into it. Now the witch was extremely pissed, and she decided to cast a powerful spell that caused the ground to shake and the trees to sway. She summoned a storm that raged for 3 days and 3 nights, causing destruction and chaos throughout the entire village. Finally, the young man, with the help of other villagers, was able to confront the witch and break her spell. The witch's heart was filled with so much anger and hatred that it just turned to stone, and she was never seen again. The villagers say that if you listen closely on a stormy night, you can still hear the witch's heart beating beneath the ground, a reminder of the power of love and the dangers of anger and hatred. At a number 8 spot, we have Haunted Mesa. The legend of the Haunted Mesa in New Mexico dates back to the early 1800s. According to the legend, the mesa was once home to a Native American tribe who lived in harmony with the land and its natural resources. But as time passed by, the tribe grew greedy and began to exploit the land. They would strip it of its resources and cause great harm to the environment because of it. As a punishment for their actions, the spirits of the land rose up and cursed the tribe, causing them to be consumed by a terrible darkness. The tribe was never seen again, and the mesa has been haunted ever since by the spirits of the land. They are said to still roam the area at night, searching for those who dare to desecrate the land. Many people have reported strange and eerie occurrences on the Haunted Mesa, including ghostly apparitions, unexplained noises, and mysterious lights. Some have even claimed to see the ghosts of the Native American tribe still wandering the mesa in search of redemption. Despite these stories, the Haunted Mesa remains a popular destination for hikers and adventurers who are drawn to its rugged beauty and eerie atmosphere. Some say the spirits of the land are still watching over the mesa, protecting it from those who would seek to harm it. So if you hike here, stride carefully. At a number 7 spot, we have a Witch's Bridge. The Witch's Bridge is a legendary structure said to be located in New Mexico, although the exact location is unknown. According to the legend, the bridge was built by a woman who was shunned by the community because they believed she was a witch. The woman, who was determined to get her revenge, constructed this bridge using her own blood and bone, imbuing it with dark magic as well. As the story goes, anyone who crosses the bridge will be cursed with bad luck and misfortune for their entire lives. Some say that the bridge is guarded by the spirit of the witch, who emerges at night to haunt and terrorize hikers. Others believe that the curse can only be lifted by performing a complex ritual at the side of the bridge. Despite the legend, there is actually no evidence of a bridge matching the description in New Mexico. It is likely the story is a tall tale or a piece of folklore, rather than a true account of events. However, that does not stop people from being intrigued by the legend and people going out searching for this bridge. At a number 6 spot, we have a man in the black hat. The man in the black hat is a mysterious figure who is said to haunt the deserts of New Mexico. Some say that the man in the black hat was a gunfighter or a bandit who roamed the desert, preying on travelers and settlers who ventured too far from civilization. Others claim that he was a ghost or a spirit haunting the land and seeking revenge on those who had wronged him in life. Despite the many different variations of the legend, one thing remains constant. The man in the black hat was a fearsome and dangerous figure, feared by all those who came in contact with him. He is said to wear a black hat, a long coat, and a pair of guns by his side, and was said to be incredibly fast and extremely deadly with a gun. There's even one story of him single-handedly defeating a group of 10 raiders in less than a minute in an attempt to just save some settlers. Despite his heroic deeds, however, the man in the black hat was never seen again, and his fate remains a mystery to this day. Some say that he simply vanished into the deserts, never to be seen again, while others believe that he met his end at the hands of another enemy. Maybe he finally found peace and moved on to the afterlife. Haven't we thought about that? In the hump of our list, we have the hanging tree. The legend of the hanging tree in New Mexico dates back to the 1800s, when the area was a wild and lawless frontier. According to the legend, the hanging tree was a large tree located in the center of town, where criminals and outlaws were brought to justice by being hanged from its sturdy branches. The most famous story associated with the hanging tree is that of a notorious outlaw named Billy the Kid, who is said to have been hanged from the tree after being captured by a posse of vigilantes. Despite its reputation as a place of justice and punishment, the hanging tree was also said to be cursed, and many people believe that anyone who were hung from this tree would be doomed to haunt the town for eternity. Over the time, the tree became a symbol of fear and dread, and people avoided it at all costs, even during the day. Eventually, the town decided to cut down the hanging tree and burn it to the ground in an effort to rid the town of its dark history and the supposed curse that was said to be associated with it. Today, all that remains of the hanging tree is a small plaque on the spot where it once stood. At a number 4 spot, we have a witch's ladder. The legend of the witch's ladder in New Mexico tells the story of a powerful witch who lived in the mountains and was known for casting spells and curses on those who crossed her. One day, a group of travelers stumbled upon her cabin and asked for shelter for the night. The witch agreed, but she secretly secretly cast a curse on them. Desperate to break the curse, the travelers sought help from a wise woman who told them that they must climb to the top of the mountain and gather a handful of the witch's hair in order to break the curse for good. The travelers managed to do this, but the witch chased after them using all the spells she knew. Using the hair as a talisman, the travelers outran the witch and made their way back down the mountain, where they burned the hair and finally broke the curse. From that day on, the mountain was known as the Witch's Ladder. Despite the fact that the legend of the Witch's Ladder is just a story, it continues to be told and retold in the American Southwest, reminding us of the power and determination and the importance of standing up to those who seek to do us harm. At number 3 spot, we have the Curse of the Full Moon. The Curse of the Full Moon is a popular tale told to many in New Mexico, and it involves a powerful medicine man who placed a curse on the land to protect it from the actions of early European settlers. The legend goes that the medicine man was a powerful shaman who had the ability to communicate with the spirits of the land and the animals that lived there. He was deeply connected to the natural world, and he would have a great reverence for the land and its inhabitants. However, when the European settlers arrived, they began to disregard the sacredness of the land and its inhabitants. They would cut down trees, hunt down the animals, and they would pollute the waters. The medicine man was outraged by the settlers' actions, and he decided to curse the land with a very powerful spell. And whenever the moon was full, the curse was said to be at its strongest, causing even more misfortune for those who dared to defy the spirits. Over time, the legend became well known throughout the region, and this is when people began to fear the power of the spirits and the curse. At a number 2 spot, we have the Ghost Lights. The legend of the Ghost Lights in New Mexico dates back to the time of the Native Americans who inhabited the region. According to the legend, the Ghost Lights were spirits of the dead who roamed the earth in search of their loved ones. These spirits were said to be the souls of warriors who were killed in battle, or of women and children who had died of disease or other natural causes. The Ghost Lights were said to appear as glowing orbs of light that floated through the air, moving silently and without any apparent direction. Many people have claimed to have seen the ghost lights and described them as eerie and unsettling, and some even reported feeling a sense of fear or dread when the lights were present. Despite this, however, many people also found that the ghost lights to be fascinating and mysterious, and they often went out of their way to try and catch a glimpse of these elusive spirits. In the recent years, the legend of the ghost lights in New Mexico has taken on a new dimension, with some people claiming to have captured video footage or photographs of the light. So if you guys want to see, go search it up on Google, and I promise you, you'll find one photo with it. At a number 1 spot, we have the Taos hum. The Taos hum is a mysterious low-frequency sound that has been reported in the town of Taos, New Mexico. It is described as a faint droning sound that is similar to the hum of a distant engine or the drone of a bee. Some people claim to hear the hum constantly, while others hear it occasionally. The source of the Taos hum is unknown, and there are many theories about what could be causing it. Some believe that it is a natural phenomenon caused by geological activity or atmospheric conditions. Others speculate that it is the result of human activities such as underground military bases or secret experiments. One of the most popular theories of this is caused by aliens. According to the theory, the hum is a signal or communication from an extraterrestrial civilization. Some people even claim to have experienced strange encounters or sightings of unidentified flying objects in the area where the hum is heard. Despite the many theories, no one has been able to definitely explain the Taos hum. The phenomenon remains a mystery and continues to fascinate and intrigue those who have experienced it. Some even claim that the hum has a strange, almost hypnotic effect on those who hear it, causing them to feel disoriented or dizzy. At a number 10 spot, we have the LaLaurie Mansion. According to the story, the LaLaurie Mansion in New Orleans was home to a wealthy and socialite named Delphine LaLaurie, who was known for her lavish parties, but on the other side, she was also known for her cruel treatments of her slaves. The legend of LaLaurie Mansion began in the early 1800s when Delphine was rumored to have inflicted terrible atrocities on her slaves. This included torture, mutilation, and even murder. It is said that she kept a secret room in the mansion where she performed these horrific acts, and that the ghosts of her victims still haunt the property to this day because of this. One of the most famous stories associated with the mansion involves a fire that broke out at the property in 1834. As the fire raged, neighbors and passerbys reported seeing slaves who were chained and shackled, screaming and begging for help from the windows of the burning mansion. When the fire was finally extinguished, the bodies of several slaves were found in the ruins, including one who had been hanged and another one who had been disemboweled. Over the years, the LaLaurie mansion had gained a reputation as one of the most haunted houses in the United States, and it's said to be visited by ghost hunters and paranormal investigators from all over the world. Even Nicolas Cage owned the home for some reason, but probably because of the infamous story around it. Many claim to have experienced strange and unexplained phenomena at the mansion, including unexplained noises, cold spots, and the feeling of being watched. Some have said that they've seen the ghosts of Delphine LaLaurie's victims wandering the halls of the mansion, still trapped in their chains and shackles that held them captive in life, and now it holds them captive in death as well. Many people are drawn to the mansion out of morbid curiosity, hoping to catch a glimpse of the ghosts that are said to inhabit it, while others are simply drawn to the dark and eerie history of the property. Regardless of the reasons, the LaLaurie mansion remains a fascinating and mysterious place and will be forever remembered as the most haunted home in New Orleans. At a number 9 spot, we have the Grunch. The Grunch Road Monster is an alleged chupacabra sighting in New Orleans, Louisiana that has captivated the imagination of local residents for centuries. The Grunch is described as an elaborate cross between a canid and reptilian chupacabra and is said to be more intelligent and adaptable to its surroundings than its counterparts in other parts of the world. According to the local folklore, the Grunch has leathery or scaly skin with sharp spines or quills running down its back, and it stands at a height of 3 to 4 feet tall. It is said to have a strong and unpleasant smell, and they are said to be able to use tools and open doors like primates. Some reports have suggested that it has wings and a tail as well. The Grunch is known for its aggressive behavior and has been reported to attack animals and humans alike, leaving behind mutilated corpses. There are various stories about the origins of the Grunch, including a legend involving a voodoo queen named Marie Laveau. According to the story, Marie Laveau castrated the devil baby when he was born, and the result was a male and female Grunch falling to the floor. The Grunch then attacked Marie Laveau, nearly killing her before disappearing. The legend is said to be the reason why Marie Laveau gave up her voodoo practices and returned to being a good Catholic woman. At number 8 spot, we have the Rougarou. The legend of the Rougarou has been part of the folklore of the Cajun people of Louisiana. This mysterious creature is said to roam the swamps and bayous of the region, preying on those who dare to venture out into the wilderness at night. According to the legend, the Rougarou is a werewolf-like creature with the ability to transform into a wolf or human at will. It is said to be incredibly fast and agile, able to move through the dense undergrowth of the swamp with ease. Some versions of the legend describe the Rougarou as a supernatural being that is cursed to roam the earth, while others portray it as a human who has made a pact with the devil in exchange for the power of transformation. The Rougarou is said to be a formidable and terrifying creature to those who encountered it, and those who have seen it in real life have said it had glowing red eyes, sharp teeth, and a bloodthirsty desire for human flesh. Those who encounter the Rougarou are said to be at great risk of being attacked and dying, and many people in the Cajun community still take great care to avoid the swamps and bayous at night for fear of encountering this creature. Despite its reputation, the Rougarou is also a powerful symbol in Cajun folklore. It is often used to warn people of the dangers that lurk in the wilderness, especially not to visit them at night. Some people believe that the Rougarou is a real creature that exists in the wetlands, while others just see it as a myth or a symbol of the unknown. Regardless of whether or not it's real, the Rougarou remains an important part of the cultural heritage of the Cajun people, and its legend continues to be told and passed down through the generation. Number 7, the vampire Comte de Saint-Germain. The legend of Jacques Saint-Germain, also known as the Count of Saint-Germain, has captivated and puzzled people for centuries. According to the legend, Saint-Germain was a mysterious and charismatic figure who appeared in New Orleans in the 1900s and claimed to be a descendant of the Comte de Saint-Germain, which was a historical figure from the 18th century with ties to King Louis himself. The Comte de Saint-Germain was rumored to be immortal and not to age past 40, and it was suggested that Jacques Saint-Germain was also immortal, suggesting that he may be a vampire. In addition to his supposed immortality, Saint-Germain was also rumored to exhibit vampire-like behavior. One instance of this was when he allegedly attacked a woman and bit her neck, causing her to jump from his balcony to escape. When the police arrived to investigate, they found bloodstains on tablecloths throughout his home, as well as bottles mixed with wine and blood. Even at parties, Saint Germain was never reportedly seen eating and was always holding a glass of red liquid, which some people suspected was blood. Despite these strange occurrences, Saint Germain remained a respected and well-liked member of the community. However, he eventually disappeared as mysteriously as he arrived, leaving behind only a trail of rumors and legends. To this day, the true identity and nature of Jacques Saint Germain remains a mystery. While some believe that he was a real person with supernatural powers, others believe he was just purely a legend and a myth. At a number 6 spot, we have the Carter brothers. The city of New Orleans is known for once having the Carter brothers named John and Wayne. These two men are said to have been vampires sometime in the 1930s. According to the legend, the pair would capture their victims and hold them in their shared home, where they would drain and drink their blood. So one day in the early 1930s, a young girl managed to escape from the Carter home and ran frantically down the streets until a police officer spotted her. She told the officer that she and others had been held captive in the Carter house with their wrists cut to enable a slow bleed. The girl either took the officer back to the Carter home or was rushed to the hospital, depending on the version of the story. When the police arrived at the Carter home, they discovered the bodies of over a dozen victims with their wrists slit and their blood drained. There are also at least 4 captives still tied up and bleeding from their wrists at the home. Some of the bodies were wrapped in sheets and all appeared as though they had been there for extended periods of time. In some versions of the legend, the police left 10 of their largest officers in the apartment to take on the alleged vampires when they returned to feed at night. When the brothers returned home that night, it reportedly took 7 to 8 officers to subdue them. Upon their arrest, the Carter brothers allegedly admitted to becoming vampires and asked to be killed, as they would continue to capture and drink the blood of their victims. They were tried and executed for their crimes, but many believe that they continue to haunt the streets of New Orleans, taking their place in the city's grand lore. The legend of the Carter brothers serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of monsters hiding in plain sight and the horrors that can lurk within the walls of even the most normal looking homes. In the Humper list, we have the Bonnie and Clyde ambush site. The Bonnie and Clyde ambush site is a location where the notorious criminal duo Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow were ambushed and killed by law enforcement in 1934. The site is located in Bienville Parish, Louisiana, near the town of Gibbsland. Bonnie and Clyde were known for their string of robberies and murders during the Great Depression, and they became infamous as symbols of the era's lawlessness and social upheaval. On May 23, 1934, Bonnie and Clyde were driving through Louisiana when they were ambushed by a group of law enforcement officers who had been tracking them down for months. The officers fired over 130 rounds at the couple's vehicle, killing them both. Bonnie and Clyde's bodies were then taken to a funeral home in Arcadia, Louisiana, where they were publicly displayed before being buried in Dallas, Texas. Ever since, the ambush site has been a popular attraction, but not for all the good reasons. Because it's reported that on a full moon, you can still hear gunshots and faint screaming from the area, as though the incident is playing out again and again in some other dimension. At a number 4 spot, we have the Voodoo Queen. Mary Laveau was a well-known figure in New Orleans, Louisiana in the 19th century. She was a powerful and influential figure in the city's voodoo community and was often referred as the Voodoo Queen. Laveau was born in New Orleans in 1801, and she was descended from a long line of voodoo practitioners. She was known for her knowledge of herbal medicine, and she was said to be able to cure a variety of ailments through the use of various potions and spells. Laveau was also said to have the ability to communicate with the spirits, and many believe that she had the power to cast spells and curses on those who crossed her. Despite her reputation as a powerful and feared figure, Laveau was more so known for her charitable works and her willingness to help those in need. She was known to provide assistance to the poor and the sick, and she was highly respected within the voodoo community. Laveau's influence and fame extended beyond the voodoo community, and she was known to be visited by the people of all walks of life, including politicians and celebrities. She passed away in 1881, and ever since, many claim that if you visit her grave at the St. Louisville Cemetery and place a rose on her grave at midnight, there's a good chance your body will begin to levitate. At a number 3 spot, we have Le Faux Follet. Le Faux Follet, or the Will-o'-the-Wisp, is a term used in Louisiana folklore to describe a ghostly light that is said to appear in swamps, marshes, and other remote or isolated areas. According to the local legend, it is a mischievous spirit that lures travelers off their path or into danger, often with the intention of causing them harm. In some versions of the legend, it is said to be the spirit of a person who passed away from violent or premature death and is unable to rest until it has fulfilled some unfinished business or desire. This spirit is said to manifest itself as a glowing light that moves erratically and seems to have a life of its own. In some versions of the legend, it is simply a malevolent entity that delights in causing confusion and chaos for others. Despite its reputation, it is often depicted as a small glowing light that is difficult to discern from a distance. Some believe it can only be seen to those who are lost or in danger, while others claim that it appears only at night or in a foggy or misty condition. Many believe it is a sign of danger or misfortune, and that encountering it is a telltale sign of bad luck or even death. At number 2 spot, we have the Myrtles Plantation. The Myrtles Plantation in St. Francisville, Louisiana is a historic plantation home that is rumored to be haunted by the ghosts of former slaves who were executed on the property. Built in the late 1700s, the plantation has a long and dark history, including several instances of murder and violence. One of the most well-known ghosts at the Myrtles Plantation is said to be that of a former slave named Chloe, who was executed by her fellow slaves after she was caught eavesdropping on their conversations. She is said to haunt the plantation house, where she is often seen walking through the rooms and the corridors. Some people have reported seeing her ghost, while others have reported hearing strange noises and feeling a presence in the house. Adding on to the tragedy of the home, the plantation's original owner, Clark Woodruff, was poisoned by his wife, who was later acquitted of her crime. Then another former owner, Judge Hardy, was shot and murdered on the property. These events, along with the many other tragic stories associated with the plantation, are said to contribute to its reputation as a haunted house. No wonder this is a haunted house. At number 1 spot, we have the Honey Island Swamp Monster. The Honey Island Swamp Monster is a cryptid that is said to inhabit the Honey Island Swamp in Louisiana. It is described as a large humanoid with brown or black fur, long arms, and a barrel-shaped body. Some reports have described the creature as having the face that resembles a monkey or a human, while others have described it as having a more reptilian or amphibious appearance with alligator qualities. The legend of the Honey Island Swamp Monster dates back to the early 20th century, when it was first reported by a group of hunters who claimed to have encountered it by the swamp. Since then, there has been numerous reports of the creature reported by people who claim to have encountered it while exploring the place or living in the surrounding area. It was blamed for the many human and livestock deaths that occurred around this area, and ever since, people feared this monster to the point that they wouldn't even enter anywhere close to these swamps. There's been various theories purports to explain the existence of this monster, including the possibility that it is a surviving population of a prehistoric creature, or even a new species of animals that has yet to be discovered by science. Others believe that the creature was raised alongside alligators from a homeless orphan who lived in the area. Regardless, the Honey Island Swamp Monster remains a mystery and is feared by everyone who lives near it. At number 10 spot, we have the Mercy Brown Vampire Incident. Many of you guys might know about this one. The Mercy Brown Vampire Incident took place in 1892 on Exeter, Rhode Island. At the time, the town was plagued by a series of deaths caused by a mysterious illness, which is now known today as tuberculosis. However, at the time, they believed it was a curse placed on the town by vampires. The incident centered around the Brown family, who had lost several members to the illness. In an effort to lift the curse and save the remaining family members, it was decided that the body of the recently deceased daughter, Mercy Brown, would be exhumed and her heart would be burned. This was because when they checked up on all the family members, they noticed that she was showing no sign of decomposition and there was still blood in her heart. On the night of the exhumation, a group of men gathered at the cemetery to perform the ritual. As they were prepared to burn her heart, one of the men noticed that there were fresh blood on her lips. This was seen as a sign that Mercy was in fact a vampire, and the decision was made to also burn her liver and stake her through the heart to ensure that she could never rise again. The incident caused a sensation at the time and was widely reported in the newspaper. It was sparked debate about the existence of vampires and the proper way to deal with them. Despite the efforts of the men in the cemetery that night, the illness continued to plague the town, leading many to believe that the curse was never truly lifted. At a number 9 spot, we have Fingernails Freddy. Fingernails Freddy was a notorious figure in the small town of Cumberland, Rhode Island. Known for his long, sharp fingernails that were rumored to be laced with poison, Freddy was what many people feared. He was said to have been born with a rare genetic condition that caused his nails to grow at an alarming rate, and he honed his deadly claws by sharpening them on the stones of the local river. Despite his fearsome reputation, no one knew much about Freddy's past or why he had chosen to live in isolation in the woods around the town. Some said that he was a former circus performer who had been cast out by his troupe for his dangerous and his unpredictable behavior. Others whispered that he was a mad scientist who had conducted gruesome experiments on animals in his secret laboratory deep in the forest. Regardless of what he was, it wasn't until 3 kids got murdered in the woods here when the town started to believe in the legend more. But as the years passed, Freddy's reign of terror began to fade, and the legend ends with a group of brave hunters venturing into the woods to track him down. And apparently they eventually cornered Freddy in his lair, and yeah, you get the rest. At number 8 spot, we're the Flying Dutchman of the Narragansett Bay. Flying Dutchman time! Oops, not that one. The Flying Dutchman of the Narragansett Bay is a ghost ship that is said to sail the waters of the bay and cursed to roam the seas for eternity. According to the legend, the Flying Dutchman was once a mighty ship that plied the waters of the Atlantic Ocean. It was commanded by a fearless captain and crewed by a dedicated and loyal team of sailors. However, the ship met its doom when it was caught in a violent storm off the coast of Rhode Island. Despite their best efforts, the captain and his crew were unable to save the ship. It was battered by the storm and eventually capsized, sinking to the bottom of the bay. The captain and his crew were all lost, and their spirits were doomed to roam the waters of the bay till the end of time. Since that fateful day, the Flying Dutchman has been sighted many times by locals and visitors to the bay. Some have even claimed to have heard the ghostly voices of the captain and his crew crying out in desperation and despair. Many believe that the Flying Dutchman is cursed and that anyone who sees the ghost ship will suffer a terrible fate. Some have reported feeling a sense of fear and dread when they come into contact with the ghost ship, as if they're being warned to stay away. At our number 7 spot, we have the Newport Tower. The Newport Tower is a mysterious stone structure located in the city of Newport, Rhode Island. The origins of the tower are shrouded in mystery, and it has been a subject of much speculation and debate over the years. Some believe it was built by Vikings, while others believe it was built by Portuguese explorers. Regardless of who built it, according to the legend, the Newport Tower is said to be cursed. Locals claim that anyone who dares to enter the tower will suffer a terrible and, most of the time, gruesome fate. Despite the warnings, many people who have ventured inside of the tower have reported strange and inexplicable occurrences. The most common things reported here are screams of disembodied voices and the feeling of something or someone holding your ankle. One of the most chilling stories associated with the tower is that one day a group of young students decided to spend the night inside here. And only after one night, the students were never seen or heard from again, and their fate remains a mystery to this day. The legend of the Newport Tower continues to captivate the imaginations of locals and visitors alike. Despite the many theories and stories surrounding the tower, its true origins and purpose still remains a mystery. Some say it is a portal to another realm, while others believe it holds the key to ancient secrets and hidden knowledge. But what do you guys think is inside here? Could it just be an old lighthouse? Who knows? At our number 6 spot, we have the Perron family. The Perron family haunted house is a true story that has been adapted into a popular horror film called The Conjuring. The Perron family, consisting of husband Roger, wife Carolyn, and their 5 daughters, moved into a large secluded farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island in 1971. At first, the family was excited to move into their dream home, but they realized that something was not quite right. Strange noises and eerie presences were felt throughout the house, and the family began to experience terrifying occurrences on a daily basis. The haunting became more and more intense, with objects moving on their own and furniture being thrown across the room. The family also heard footsteps, voices, and even saw ghostly apparitions wherever they went. Desperate for help, the parents turned to the renowned paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren for assistance. The Warrens conducted a series of exorcisms and other rituals, but the haunting continued to escalate. The family was forced to live in constant fear, with some members even being physically attacked by the malevolent spirits that haunted the house. After living in the house for 10 years, the parents were finally able to break free from the spirits and move out. Today, the old farmhouse still stands, an eerie reminder of the terrifying events that took place within its walls. In the hump of our list, we have the Lad School. The Lad School is said to be haunted by the ghosts of former patients who once lived there. The Lad School was founded as the Rhode Island School for the Feeble-Minded in 1908. It was originally intended to be a place where people with mental and physical disabilities could live and receive more care. However, over the years, the school had become known for its inhumane treatment of their patients, including instances of physical and psychological abuse. Many of the former patients who lived at the Lad School have reported seeing ghostly figures wandering the halls and hearing strange noises coming from the empty rooms. Some have even claimed to have been touched or grabbed by unseen hands. One particularly eerie story coming from this place is of a former employee who worked at the school in the 1980s. They claim that one night while they were working the night shift, they heard a loud banging noise coming from one of the patients' rooms. When they went to investigate, they found the room was completely empty and the door locked from the inside. To this day, she had no explanation for what could have caused the noise, let alone whatever locked her inside of that room. Another ghostly encounter at the Lad School involved a group of students who were visiting the school as part of a field trip. They reported seeing a ghostly figure standing at the end of a hallway, staring at them with a blank expression. When they approached the figure, it suddenly vanished right into thin air. At our number 4 spot, we're the Rose Island Lighthouse. The Rose Island Lighthouse is a historic and iconic landmark located in Narragansett Bay. Built in the early 18th century, the lighthouse has served as a beacon of hope and guidance for ships navigating the treacherous waters of the bay. However, over the years, the lighthouse has also gained a reputation for being haunted, with many people claiming to have experienced strange and unexplained occurrences within its walls. According to the legend, the ghost of a former lighthouse keeper named Captain James T. Waring is said to haunt the lighthouse. Captain Waring was the lighthouse keeper at the time of the American Revolution, and it is said that he died in the lighthouse under mysterious circumstances. His ghost is said to roam the halls and rooms of the lighthouse, and many people have reported seeing him or feeling his presence while they visit. Other stories about the lighthouse include the ghost of a young woman who's said to have drowned in the bay. Her ghost is said to appear on the shores of the island, beckoning to those who come near. However, the Rose Island Lighthouse remains a fascinating and mysterious place, and it is sure to continue to capture the imagination of those to hear its haunting tales. At our number 3 spot, we have the Brenton Point State Park. The Brenton Point State Park, located in Newport, Rhode Island, is a beautiful and peaceful place that is popular with tourists and locals alike. However, it is also the site of a scary legend that has been passed down through the years. According to the legend, the park is haunted by the ghost of a young girl who drowned in the ocean nearby. The story goes that the girl's parents were wealthy and lived in the mansion, but they were very strict and didn't allow her to have any fun. One day, the girl decided that she had enough of her mundane life and ran away to the beach. She was determined to have some fun and enjoy the freedom that she always craved. But as the sun began to set, the girl started to feel a sense of dread wash over her. She realized she had no way back home and that her parents would be very angry with her when they found out what she had done. Just as she was starting to panic, a handsome young man walked up to her and offered to take her home. The girl was relieved and gratefully accepted his offer. However, as they walked around the shoreline, the young man revealed that he was actually a ghost. He told the girl that he had drowned in the ocean years ago and that he'd been looking for someone to take his place in the afterlife. The girl was terrified and tried to run away, but the ghost grabbed her and dragged her into the water. Now it's said that the ghost of the young girl haunts the Brenton Point State Park, crying out for help and trying to warn others of the danger that lurks in the waters. Some people claim to have heard her cries late at night, while others say that they've seen her ghost wandering the halls or the mansion. Whether or not the legend is true, it is a chilling tale that is sure to give anyone who hears this a good scare. At our number 2 spot, we have the ghost of the Hanging Rock. The Ghost of the Hanging Rock is a chilling story that many people in Rhode Island hear about. The legend tells the story of a young woman who was brutally murdered on the rocky cliffs of Narragansett Bay. It was said that the young woman was a beautiful and active member of the local community. She was loved by many and had a bright future ahead of her. However, her life was tragically cut short, and now her ghost is said to haunt the area, appearing as a ghostly figure with long flowing hair. If you decide to take a visit to the bay, chances are you may hear her haunting voice calling out your name. If you do decide to investigate this voice, you'll probably feel her presence, with some describing a sense of coldness and fear when they are near the site of that sound. Despite the many theories and stories surrounding the legend of the Ghost of the Hanging Rock, the truth about what happened to the young woman remains a mystery, and her ghost continues to haunt the area, serving as a reminder of the terrible tragedy that took place on the rocky cliffs of this bay. At a number 1 spot, we have the Foster Witch. The Foster Witch of Rhode Island is a well-known legend in the state. The story goes that the witch, whose real name is unknown, lived in the town of Foster in the 18th century. She was known for her magic abilities and was often sought out by locals who needed help for various problems. One day, a group of townspeople became fed up with the witch and decided to put an end to her ways. They gathered together and burned her at the stake, but as she was being consumed by the flames, she cursed the town of Foster, saying that it would suffer for what it had done to her. For many years after her death, strange and mysterious events occurred in Foster. Animals would behave oddly, crops would fail, and strange noises could be heard throughout the night. Some have even claimed to see the ghost of the Foster witch wandering the town, seeking revenge for her death. Eventually, the townspeople realized they needed to make amends for their actions and appease the spirit of the witch. They held a public ceremony during which they apologized for what they had done and promised to honor the witch's memory. From that day on, the strange occurrences in Foster stopped, and the town was able to move on in peace.
Starting off this countdown at number 10, La Plaza Mansion. La Plaza Mansion has made an appearance on many TV shows about ghosts and is known to be one of the most haunted places in the United States. The previous owner started freaking out when bad things started happening in the house. He tried to confront the evil spirit, but it was rumored that he was choked until he almost passed away. He was fortunate to have escaped, and the house currently remains vacant with no one inside. Well, no one living there, I guess. It's believed the mob in Las Vegas owned this house. Upon investigation, they discovered a room covered with dry blood. It's speculated that the mob used this room to perform executions. While no one has dared to live in the house after that one man, no one has also ever dared to tear it down out of fear. Now at number 9, the Sphinx. A geographic phenomenon serves as the source for an urban legend that continues to intrigue and mystify people to this day. If you traveled through Nevada, you've probably noticed how Nevada's rivers empty into small lakes that don't have any visible outlets. These lakes are called sinks, referring to the way that the water simply sinks away. An urban legend says that the sinking water is to God, who, after creating the Mississippi and Missouri rivers, decided to make a third river in Nevada that was bigger than the others. God spent time creating 8 smaller rivers that would forge together to make one big river, but he ran out of time and decided to finish the work later. God tucked in the ends of the rivers overnight to keep them safe, but when the next day came, he forgot about them, and the 8 rivers were left alone, leading nowhere and eventually emptying into the sinks. Now coming in at number 8, bodies in the Hoover Dam. Sometimes urban legends become so popular that people start believing it's a fact, and here's just one example. The Hoover Dam was built in the 1930s. During its construction, 96 workers unfortunately lost their lives, but popular belief says the number could be much higher. More disturbing than that is that it's said that 7 bodies were allegedly never removed from the dam because they fell through gaps and were buried in the concrete. Coming in at number 7, corpse under the bed. I'm sure you guys have all heard about this one before, but let's talk about it again. This urban legend is one that has done the rounds across the United States. The general story is that guests will stay at a cheap hotel for the night. They will enjoy a great night's sleep before waking up in the morning to smell something very pungent and gross. Upon investigating the foul smell, the guests will discover the decomposing corpse of a victim rotting right under where they laid their head that previous night. It's alleged that this myth started in Las Vegas after gangsters would leave their murder victims under the bed in hotels. Coming in at number 6, Del H. Robinson Middle School. Kids can have a wild imagination when it comes to urban legends and myths. However, this one seems to have many witnesses to be dismissed without a thought. The students at Del H. Robinson Middle School have reported seeing a janitor walking the halls with bloody hands. Some new arrivals to the school have also claimed to see a man in their dreams after enrolling in the school. Some say that he followed them home and then disappeared. The strange twist to this Las Vegas urban legend is that all witnesses said their sightings ended when they started going to church. Halfway at number 5, the Megabucks Curse. In March 2000, Cynthia J. Brennan won the life-changing Megabucks jackpot at the Desert Inn. It was a total of $34.9 million. However, tragically, Cynthia was then involved in a horrific car accident just days after the winning. The accident left her quadriplegic and ignited rumors that the Megabucks prize was cursed. The flames of this legend were fanned even more in 2003, when it claimed that an anonymous winner of the $39.7 million Megabucks jackpot at the Excalibur Hotel unfortunately passed away after a drug overdose. Even though no official confirmation has come from winners losing their lives after winning the Megabucks jackpot, many still believe in the Megabucks curse. Previous winners have allegedly passed away in plane crashes, passed in Los Angeles gang fights, and suffered heart attacks. Now at number 4, ghost at Goldfield Hotel. There are several urban legends associated with Goldfield Hotel. The most famous urban legend is the story of Elizabeth. As legend has it, Elizabeth, who was an intimate street worker, and George Wingfield, who was a past owner, had gotten her pregnant. Because George was afraid of the publicity destroying his reputation, he chained Elizabeth to the radiator in room number 109. Supposedly, after Elizabeth gave birth, Wingfield threw the baby down an abandoned mine shaft in the basement of the hotel, and either allowed Elizabeth to pass away on her own or had someone take her life. Now at number 3, Black Market. This classic urban legend ticks all the boxes on the list for horrifying. This urban legend goes like this. One night out, some tourists met some locals in a bar and eventually have their drinks spiked, and they then wake up in a nightmare situation. If you've watched Hostel, then you'll have a rough idea of how this one goes. In 1991, one specific rumor started doing the rounds that an individual was spiking the drinks of unsuspecting drinkers on nights out in Las Vegas and stealing their kidneys to sell them for money. Victims would be sharing drinks with a charismatic stranger one minute, and the next minute they would be waking up in a hotel bathtub covered with ice and stitches on their lower back. The predator would leave a simple note stating call 911 or you'll die. Now coming in at number 2, the ghosts of the MGM Grand Fire. On the 21st of November 1980, the MGM Grand Hotel and Casino was the scene for one of the most devastating tragedies in the history of the city. A blazing fire ripped through the resort, claiming the lives of 85 people. At the time of the fire, hotels in Las Vegas were not required to have sprinkler systems installed, so this hotel didn't have one. It was said that faulty wiring is what caused the fire, and it could not be stopped in time to save the lives of those that were eventually lost. Bally's Las Vegas now stands on the site of the old hotel, and it is rumored that the ghosts of those that passed on that fateful night roamed the halls of the new hotel, haunting people because no one was able to save them.
Officials later estimated the fire traveled across the casino, the length of a football field, in less than 20 seconds. Had it been later in the day, the area likely would have been jammed with gamblers. At this point, smoke rising from the MGM could be seen for miles around, and firefighters were rushing toward the MGM from all over the Las Vegas area.
Now coming in at number 1, Area 51. When you hear about urban legends associated with Las Vegas, Area 51 is usually at the top of the list. Officially called the Nevada Test and Training Range, this high-security open training range for the US Air Force in the Nevada desert has been the subject of controversy and conversation over the years. One widely held conspiracy involves Area 51 and UFOs. Some stories connected with the site suggest that the remains from a flying saucer that supposedly crashed near Roswell, New Mexico in 1947 was then transported to Area 51 for further examination. Granted, the Air Force began to investigate claims of UFO sightings in 1952, an effort that later became known as Project Blue Book. When Project Blue Book ended in 1996, the Air Force had investigated more than 12,000 UFO claims. Dr. Jeffrey T. Richardson, a former senior fellow at the George Washington University National Security Archive, did a lot of research into Area 51 during his lifetime. He reported that the CIA's Lockheed U-2 plane reconnaissance program, spy planes used to gather intelligence, was connected with Area 51. Jeffrey filed a Freedom of Information Act in 2005 to seek information about this program. In 2013, Richardson told the New York Times that after examining declassified CIA documents about activity in Area 51, quote, the only overlap is the discussion of the U-2 flights and UFO sightings. The fact that you had these high-flying aircrafts in the air being the cause of some of the sightings. So what do you think really goes on at Area 51?
At number 10 spot, we have the walking statue of Augusta Bittner. In the northeastern part of Lancaster lies the Lancaster Cemetery. While the cemetery is massive and has hundreds of tombstones, one particular memorial sticks out to all guests who visit, and this is the tombstone of Augusta Bittner. The statue itself is gorgeous in an artistic standpoint, but I can definitely see why people fear the statue at night. And many visitors to the cemetery claim to see the statue walking across the grounds. The apparition is said to have flaming green eyes swollen with tears that seem to be trapped in a state of death, searching relentlessly for answers. Story goes that Augusta Bittner married a man named Stanley Tevis on May 3rd, 1905. They would eventually move to Philadelphia, where Augusta gave birth to their first daughter, Sylvia. Everything seemed to be going well until their first anniversary. Augusta fell ill to typhoid and passed a horrible death. So basically within 13 months, Augusta married, had a baby, and passed away. Her parents then spent a fortune on her tombstone, and over 100 years later, it's still standing strong and beautiful. Except for the fact that it walks around crying. Yeah, no thanks. At a number 9 spot, we have the Clifton 5 Theater. This place was built in the mid 1850s and is still running to this day. The Clifton 5 Theater, formerly known as a Hunting Dawn Opera House, was so large that the street level had to be raised a total of 4 feet to accommodate it. And it was also a place where Freemasons would have meetings in secret. It wasn't until 1901 where the largest fire in Huntington's history burned down the theater. This fire saw the end of at least one person. Then in 1921, a man named Andy Gamble purchased the theater only to be met with yet another fire. Eventually, a man named Blackford bought the business and named it Clifton, which is named after his son who passed away in the military. And ever since, people have claimed to witness all sorts of creepy things. Visitors cite the lady in red ghost, who is believed to be a person who is well off, wearing a scarlet dress, walking up and down the stairways. When people get too close to her, they claim to hear her whisper, Lolita. Perhaps a daughter? No one really knows. At number 8 spot, we have the house on Ridge Avenue. In the north side of Pittsburgh lies in what is known as the house the devil built. The house is actually 1129 Ridge Avenue and known as the Conglier House. It was built in the 1860s by Charles Conglier, who lived in the house with his wife Lida and their maid Essie. The maid and Charles would be having a secret affair, and soon after, the wife overheard what was happening, so she collected a knife and proceeded to murder the two. She would be found later humming lullabies as she rocked on her chair. Then in 1900, Dr. Adolph purchased the home. One day the neighbors heard a woman screaming in the house and called the police. Once the cops arrived, the doctor was nowhere to be found, but instead there was only a body of a woman with no head. Then a single mother and her 5 children lived there in the 1920s, until a nearby natural gas tank exploded and killed the mother, causing the 5 children to be left abandoned. Although the tale is said to be fabricated, many of these stories are actually true. At number 7, we have the Squonk. When I saw this guy, I couldn't help but laugh. And the only reason I added him on this list was because he was a mythical creature, and come on, he's terrifyingly cute and ugly at the same time. The Squonk is a pig hybrid that almost has decaying skin that is covered in warts. Its tusks are yellow and crooked with cauliflower ears, looking like any MMA fighter. It appears to be crying because it just thinks it's ugly, which is just so freaking sad. I kinda wanna just give it a hug. Except if you try, hunters claim that the creature turns into a puddle of tears. A man named JP Wentling was said to have captured the Squonk in a bag. Once he went to go show everyone, the thing that remained was only the liquid of the creature. Some believe the Squonks can predict the future and will accept something in exchange for this. However, since they are pessimistic creatures, only the bad parts of your future will be mentioned. So this is basically like having a fortune teller who just hates their life. At number 6 spot with Albawitch. In the forest of Columbia, Pennsylvania is a 4-foot tall hairy creature known as the Albawitch. Their name is just short for apple snitch, since they are known to be snatching apples left and right like they're trying to miss a day at the doctor's. People who walk along the Susquehanna River claim to have these small creatures violently throw apples at them to push them away from their homes. Their homes are said to be on top of the treetops where they would only come down to gather apples. These hairy humanoids are often mistaken as Bigfoot, since they're also reported around the area. What if these guys are just Bigfoot children? This would explain their small stature at least. Despite the fact that these creatures are not likely to cause death, getting apples thrown at you aggressively doesn't sound too appealing either. In the hump of our list, we have the Appalachian Trail. From Maine all the way to Georgia, the Appalachian Trail is a 2,200-mile stretch that is also the longest hiking only trail in the world. This place is known for its beauty. Every mile is filled with fresh sights and breathtaking views. But when you have this much of inhabited land, some things are bound to happen to those visiting the area. Many hikers who have trekked this path have shared their haunting stories online for those to see, and it's crazy the amount of stories I read. So many it almost seems like it isn't a coincidence. Some have mentioned encountering the mountain people while on their hike, saying that they protect their camps with extreme violence and they have a tent-like city within these trails. Apart from the mountain men, the trail has had over 10 homicides. The first one happened in 1974 in Georgia and 3 in Pennsylvania. Then in 1990, a double murder took place at the top of Cove Mountain located within Pennsylvania. A young 25 and 26-year-old couple was shot and stabbed to death by a wanted criminal. The details of this crime are horrific, so I probably won't mention the specifics here. At a number 4 spot, we have No Face Charlie. If you grew up in the 1950s and 60s in western Pennsylvania, chances are you heard the legend of the Green Man or No Face Charlie. The legend says that No Face Charlie would stalk the remote streets at night and sometimes chase others away from him. No disrespect, but if I saw him at night, I would definitely be running the other way. No Face Charlie was actually based on a real man named Raymond Robinson. His story is pretty tragic. In 1919, Robinson was only 8 years old when he was reaching for a bird's nest at the top of an electrical pole when he was suddenly shocked with 11,000 volts of electricity. He was severely injured, his His nose, lips, and ears, and also eyes were all gone or misshapen. And on top of that, one of his hands were completely blown off. This is what gave him this image that appears haunting for others. Raymond was in fact a really kind and friendly individual, but others feared him and will give him this negative stigma regardless of how he really was on the inside. He has now since passed, and I hope he's finally accepted for who he is. At number 3 spot, we have Blue Mist Road. Blue Mist Road is actually named Irwin Road, and locals claim that you can see a blue mist covering the entire road at night. Back in the 1800s, it was a dirt road, and even to this day, it still remains unpaved. The road has way too many tragic stories to tell you in one single point, but let me tell you a few of these. This place has a very dark history to it. Legends claim that a witch lived on this road who used to practice black magic, including rituals and human sacrifice. A family lived here, and one day the husband came home in a trance-like state and murdered his entire family. At number 2 spot, we have Anna Baker's dress. This dress belonged to Anna Baker, who was a part of a wealthy family located in Altoona, Pennsylvania. They would reside in what is known now as the Baker Mansion in 1849. The same year, Anna fell in love with a man and planned to get married, but her father Elias was like, no, that's not happening. It's believed he said no because he was part of a different social class. He didn't want this marriage to happen so bad he even got the man banished from the town. Anna was heartbroken and begged her dad, but her dad kept saying no. She then went out on her way to buy her own dress, the one in the photo, and showed her father, and he was still very adamant on the decision to say no. So in spite of her father, she was never married even after his death. Fast forward to 1922, all the members of the Baker family passed away, and the mansion had been bought up by the Blair County Historical Society and turned into a museum. In the museum, guests report seeing the glass of the dress being shaken violently. Others report seeing a woman apparition in a black dress staring into this display. Perhaps it's Anna from the grave, but we'll never know. At number 1 spot, we have the Devil's Road. Yup, nothing good about this one. Night Shyamalan filmed his 2004 horror film The Village in a nearby field because this creepy area just north of the Delaware border is so infused with ghostly tales. Rumor has it that a white house hidden in the wood on Devil's Road, officially named Cosart Road, was home to the family of the DuPonts, a wealthy family who resorted to inbreeding to keep their fortune within the family. The cult house, as it was known, was used to perform incestuous marriages and to conceal deformed offspring. The trees in the area have a dramatic bend away from the house, as if they're attempting to flee away from it. With the number 10 spot, we're the Goldfield Hotel. With a population of less than 300 people, this ghost town is bound to have something haunted within it. And guess what? It does. So this town got its name because it was discovered in 1902 because of a gold rush. As with many gold rush towns, when the gold went away, so did the people. Then in 1923, a fire engulfed the entire town, leaving the hotel standing alone. This hotel is now a symbol of what used to be, and many visitors claim that it's haunted by the former townsfolk. One of the most notorious spirits found in the hallways of the hotel is a woman named Elizabeth. Legend has it Elizabeth became pregnant with George Wingfield, which was one of the hotel's first owners' child. When he found out, he chained Elizabeth to a radiator in room 109 of the hotel. He supplied her with food and water until she gave birth. Some say Elizabeth passed away shortly after giving birth, and ever since you can hear a baby and her woman crying from room 109. At number 9 spot, with the Clown Motel. If you have a fear for clowns, this motel is probably the last place you want to sleep at. This hotel has an obvious theme for clowns, and this was because the father of the owner was a clown collector and ended up being buried at the cemetery, which is located right beside this motel. Motel and cemetery, probably not the most appealing combination. Not only does each and every single room have all types of different clown decorations, but past owners and workers have claimed that it was haunted since the time it was built. They would recall hearing footsteps and voices coming from unoccupied rooms. Even on their website, they have different rooms and the spiritual encounters in each and every single one of them. Because of this, they have a disclaimer which reads, quote, "By visiting the Clown Motel, you acknowledge that you may encounter interaction with spiritual and or unexplained phenomena and or other unexplainable, unusual, or paranormal activity or interactions, which may include risk which may or may not be foreseeable. The Clown Motel will not be held liable for any bodily damage, injury, or personal property, emotional distress, death, or other harm caused by aforementioned." Many others have visited this hotel, and many other YouTubers have documented their trip, but you must be a clown to step into this one. Haha, no, anyone? No? Okay. At number 8 spot, we have the Lovelock Cave. Located in the middle of Churchill County, the Lovelock Cave is one of those discoveries that makes you question our history a little bit. In 1911, 2 miners were sent to this cave to search for bat guano, which is just bat poop for those who don't know. They would collect loads of this stuff, but eventually as they got deeper into the cave, they began to discover things like baskets, shoes, and even skeletons of humans. The craziest part about this is that it claimed that the skeletons of the humans were giants. I don't mean like 7 feet beings like Shaq, I mean like 10 to 15 tall tall beings. Local legend claimed that the local Paiute tribe was once at war with cannibalistic giants. The tribe was able to fight them back and trap the giants in this cave. They then filled the cave with deadly smoke to suffocate the rest of the giants in there. Even though bones have not been formally documented, it could be hidden from the public. Who knows? At number 7 spot, we have Tahoe Tessie. On the border of California and Nevada lies the beautiful Lake Tahoe. Legends from the Paiute tribe talk about a serpentine beast who lives in an underwater tunnel beneath that very caves. Then in 1959, a police officer named Mickey Daniels reported that something large rocked his boat while he was fishing with a friend at Lake Tahoe. And it was a cause of concern because his boat was 43 feet long. So something huge must have shaken it up. Except there's no sort of whales in Tahoe, so many claimed it was actually the beast Tessie. They believe Tessie to be around 80 feet long and to be as thick as a telephone pole. Many claim it has relations to the Loch Ness Monster in Scotland, and if you see these two side by side, they honestly look like brothers. Regardless, just be wary of what lies underneath the depths next time you swim at Lake Tahoe. Sometimes the beauty in the area may be deceiving. At number 6 spot, we have Virginia City. So this whole city inside Nevada is considered to be haunted. Yup, a whole city. This place started off as a mining town and was one of Nevada's fastest growing cities, but in 1875 a fire engulfed everything within 9 hours, leaving more than 2,000 structures destroyed, hundreds homeless, and over 300 passed away. Now it's said that the spirits roam the entire town, haunting every single building within it. For example, the old Gold Hill Hotel is said to have the ghosts of children running the halls and scents of rose when spirits are nearby. The Silver Queen Hotel is allegedly haunted by one of the former workers. It's said that her spirit grabs people's hair and attempts to trip them down the stairs. Then in the St. Mary Arts Center, which was built in 1875, the same year of the fire, it's said that they offer paranormal investigations, including seances inside of the building. Right in the hump of our list, we have Bally's Casino and the MGM fire. Let's take a gamble and talk about the infamous fire that claimed the lives of many in the Las Vegas Strip. On November 21, 1980, in the world-renowned MGM Grand, a devastating fire engulfed the place, with it being the second largest loss of life hotel fire in the history of the US, with over 87 people passing away and 700 injured. During the fire, no alarms rang, and to make matters worse, sprinklers weren't even installed in all parts of the building. 8 months after, and the MGM Grand Hotel was rebuilt and reopened to the public. But ever since, visitors claim all sorts of paranormal activity. This includes ghostly apparitions on the same casino floor as the site of the fire, with some reporting that the ghosts are actually still gambling to this day, which is attributed to their last mortal moments before their passing. At number 4 spot, we have Area 51. Couldn't mention Nevada without Area 51. If you haven't been living under a rock, then you must know that this place is a potential alien hotspot. Many people believe this is a place where the government does secret tests with alien technology, and some claim that they keep aliens captive here. The most popular case was from Bob Lazar, who have claimed to work in Area 51 and said that he saw a UFO firsthand, describing it in very specific details. This led many to believe in his theory, and for probably forever, Area 51 will always be associated with alien activity until the US government tells me otherwise. At number 3 spot, we have the Flamingo Hotel. Until this violent murder 6 months after its opening in 1947, the Flamingo Hotel was the pride and joy of notorious mobster Bugsy Siegel. Siegel took over the final phases of construction and convinced more of his underworld associates, such as Meyer Lansky, to invest in the project. Siegel reportedly lost patience with the project's rising costs, and he once mentioned to the builder Del Webb that he personally killed 16 men on the job. However, some claim that he decided to stay indefinitely. Bugsy has allegedly been seen at the Garden Memorial, inside the wedding chapel, and roaming around the presidential suite, which still has the gold bathroom fixtures from his original room. Guests in his suite have reported hearing whispering and seeing dark shadows looming at the foot of their beds. At number 2 spot, with the Mob Museum. At a time, Las Vegas was controlled by the mob, and some believe they still do. So it's no surprise a museum of mob activity was built to recognize some of the horrific acts they committed. All of their exploits are documented at this mob museum, renovated from the same downtown courthouse where many of these characters were prosecuted. As you can imagine, they weren't too happy about their jail sentences, and some say their spirits still roam the halls after hours. The supernatural energy is especially strong near an exhibit dedicated to the St. Valentine Day Massacre, featuring a brick wall from a parking garage where 7 Chicago gangsters were shot dead in 1929. All the way at a number 1 spot, we have La Plaza Mansion. Although this property is pretty well put together, once you know about its past, you'll definitely look at it differently. It got such a bad rep, it eventually was considered to be Satan's mansion. Built in 1959, this now abandoned building was home to a threatening gangster. Here in this house, he would organize many of his hits. He would also execute others in that home, and he kept many people captive inside of the basement and the attic. So as the years went by, the house claimed more and more lives, eventually to a point when it reeked of the paranormal. Everyone who moved into the La Plaza mansion reports the presence of negative energy that hangs over everything. And that's just where the haunting begins. If you visit, be prepared to hear whispers saying get out of here or kill her. And sometimes you might have some piece of furniture or decoration thrown at you aggressively.
Starting off at number 10, Gitche Manitou Murders. The Gitche Manitou is a nature preserve just southeast of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, in the northeastern corner of Iowa that many believe is haunted. It has ancient Native American burial grounds, has witnessed the execution of 4 teens, and has been the site of an assault of a young child. In November of 1973, 5 teens from Sioux Falls went out camping in the area. The unsuspecting group was sitting by a fire with some green leafy substances when suddenly a shotgun went off. Roger SM, who was 17, instantly passed away by brothers Alan, David, and James Fryer, who descended on the group pretending to be cops. They separated the remaining 3 boys from the only girl, 13-year-old Sandra Chesky, and placed the girl in the back of their truck. Then the Fryer brothers lined up Stuart Bade, 15, with his little brother Dana Bade, 14, and friend Michael Hardoth, who was 15, and executed them. The little girl was kept alive and taken advantage of by James Fryer. She later identified the attackers and testified against them. They were sentenced to life in prison, but locals on both sides, Iowa and South Dakota, believe their horrible crimes still haunt the area. Number 9, Spook Road. Known to locals as Spook Road, this eerie stretch just outside of Brandon, South Dakota has quite the collection of creepy occurrences. Winding through tunnels, running over bridges, and lined in trees, locals claim this road is especially unnerving in the fall of winter months. There are many theories about the road, including one claim if you drive away from the town and count the number of turns, and then drive back and count them, you will end up with different numbers. Like driving in one direction will take you over 5 bridges, but on the way back you'll only cross 4. As if this wasn't weird enough, many cars have also wrecked on this road, which often leaves drivers with an unsettled feeling. While some people believe Spook Road is mere folklore, others will defend it to the end, with some die-hard believers even creating a Facebook group about Spook Road. Allegedly, people who also take their own lives here can still be seen hanging from both bridges and the trees, their bulging eyes watching you as you cross in horror. Number 8, Orpheum Theater. In Sioux Falls, South Dakota sits the historic Orpheum Theater with its very own ghost. The spirit, fondly referred to as Larry, may or may not be the ghost of an actor who disappeared during a dress rehearsal many years ago. Allegedly, the sound of a gunshot rang out from the light booth. When his fellow actors ran up to investigate, all that remained was a pool of blood and no body was ever found. The theater first opened in 1913 but changed hands in 1954. The new owners allegedly found a casket in the boiler room, but when they came back later to clean things out, the casket was gone. Reports of strange noises and sightings of a shadow figure became common in the old theater, and one of the more intriguing reports happened in 1959. Actor Ray Loftusness became one of the many to see this shadow man on the balcony. On that particular night, he said Larry was illuminated by the green and blue lights that was pointing directly at him. He claimed that he was hit by an icy blast of air. Then twice that night, he was assaulted by falling sandbags and was even knocked unconscious. Number 7, Sika Hollow. The Dakota Sioux Native Americans were said to have once hunted in the forest ravines known as Sika Hollow. That is, until they realized it was haunted and put a warning on its name. Sika means evil, and there are several legends that have come out of the state park. It's believed evil is steeped into every nook and cranny of this area, which is why water runs red in the Sika Hollow Springs. Never mind the mineral content, it's pure evil. The path referred to as the Trial of Spirits has bubbling red bogs and was believed by the Sioux to be the flesh and blood of their ancestors. Between all the red water, swamp gas, and tree stumps glowing in the dark, it's no wonder they thought this place was evil. Perhaps they were right. There was a rash of mysterious disappearances in the 1970s. Paired with sightings of a half-man, half-beast similar to Bigfoot in these woods. Even today, visitors have claimed to see spirits of Indians in addition to hearing voices, war cries, and chanting. This one certainly seems terrifying for sure, and definitely not a place I would want to visit. Number 6, 1880 Train Haunting. The 1880 train that runs through Hill City is rumored to be another one of the most haunted places in South Dakota. While some of the train cars are used at the current tourist attraction, many remain abandoned. Some employees have specifically mentioned seeing a man standing in the back of the eating car, only to disappear seconds later. It said that the man was crossing the tracks and accidentally got stuck and unfortunately passed away while trying to break free, and his soul now haunts the train that took his life. Trains didn't really freak me out before, but now hearing this story, I'm pretty freaked out. Halfway at number 5, Walking Sam. The Pine Ridge Indian Reservation has had an alarmingly high rate of people taking their own lives amongst their youth, and it's believed an urban legend is responsible for this. The land is being stalked by an ancient entity that takes the form of Walking Sam, like the tall man, slender man, and the long-feared stickman. This creature feeds on the living, infecting their minds and altering their thoughts. In the case of Walking Sam, his evil bidding is collecting the souls of people who take their own lives so he doesn't have to wander the earth alone. He stands around 7 feet tall, has no mouth, and has gangly limbs. When his arms are outstretched, you can see the bodies of Lakota men and women hanging from them. Since December of 2014, Pine Ridge has had 103 attempts of people trying to take their own life, with 9 people unfortunately succeeding. The youngest was only 12 and the oldest was just 24. Thankfully, church leader Pastor John Tubles discovered and prevented one of these plans from being carried out. He and a few other adults found a group of teenagers with rope already hanging from the trees. Another group of teens, all female, tried to carry out a similar plan but were stopped in time. But no one has been able to answer the biggest question: why? Tribe leaders, local mental health professionals, and law enforcement are scratching their heads on what is causing this. Number 4, Little Devils. The Spirit Mound near Vermilion has been long feared by Native Americans. They wouldn't dare go near it because of the legend of the Little Devils, who guard the mounds, attacking anyone who tries to climb them with magic arrows. The legend was first documented in 1804 and tells of the massacre that makes the mounds taboo today. However, people say it seems to have existed since long before then. Somewhere around the mid-18th century, hundreds of Indian warriors allegedly attempted to rid the world of evil little creatures, but it was they who ended up slaughtered instead. So now they stay away and leave the mounds to Little Devils. Number 3, Hookie Jack. A famous ghost in Rapid City, South Dakota is Hookie Jack. In life, his name was John Leary, but after a mining explosion in the 1800s, he lost both of his arms and one eye. His arms were replaced with hooks, hence the name Hookie Jack. He became a Rapid City police officer, but tragically passed away after being struck by a car in 1926. Now his spirit is said to haunt his former residence, which has since been converted into a tavern. According to legend, Hookie Jack lived on the 3rd floor and can still be heard roaming up there today. Employees don't even want to venture to that floor unless they absolutely must. Many employees have even refused to work the closing shift alone. Voices, rattling, and eerie sounds can all be heard upstairs at night. Strange flashing lights and spirit orbs have been caught on security footage. Multiple witnesses have seen chairs, tables, and the billiard balls moving around the table on their own. A few bartenders even claim to have seen a figure sit at the end of the bar out of the corner of their eye, only to look up and realize no one's there. Number 2, Devil's Gulch. One of the most famous urban legends in South Dakota happened in the town of Garriston. According to the local lore, infamous outlaw Jesse James successfully evaded capture in 1876 by leaping over the Devil's Gulch on horseback. Keep in mind that the Devil's Gulch is a ravine that runs 60 feet deep and is 20 feet wide. Jumping over something that massive without spooking a horse is highly improbable, and most historians would say it's impossible, but that doesn't stop locals from swearing it happened. Number 1, Hotel Alex Johnson. A hotel so surely haunted they actually advertise it right on their website. Come take a tour or stay at this haunted mansion. One of the main ghosts claimed to be seen here is the hotel's namesake, Alex Johnson himself. It is said that he comes around to make sure the hotel is still running well, but does he have any malicious intent? Why don't you book a stay and test the theory yourself? If you dare, that is.
At number 10 spot, we have the grave with stairs. Just from the photo alone, this is one of the scariest graves I've ever seen. Easy access to the dead, right? Well, this eerie grave belonged to a girl named Florence Irene Ford. Then in 1871, shortly after her 10th birthday, she passed away from yellow fever. So the reason for the stairs, when the daughter was alive, she was always terrified of storms. So you would get the classic mom taking care of her own daughter. But since she has now passed, the mother decided to build stairs down to her casket in order to comfort her daughter when it got stormy. I mean, it's a really sweet idea until you realize it's also really scary. She would go down these stairs, close the trapdoor above her, sit in complete darkness while singing hymns and songs to her daughter. I could only imagine what the people around must have thought when they heard this type of stuff. At number 9 spot, we have the Devil Worshipper Road. Located in Waynesboro, this road's real name is Waynesboro Shibuda Road, or by its more popular name, the Devil Worshipper Road. I know, I read that name and already knew this story was going to be all types of creepy. Story goes that a local farmer was struggling financially, so in hopes to provide for himself, him and his family decided it was best to sell his soul to the devil. He documented the creature that approached him as being 7 feet tall, red glowing eyes, and holding a pitchfork. Many people say that when they drive on this road at night, their car shuts down, leaving them stranded. And imagine just being in the middle of this rural highway in the middle of the night with nothing but trees and trees all around you. For some people, the spirits try to taunt them by shaking up their car until they either crash or have to stop driving completely. Then when your car is shut off, some claim that a half goat, half man will stand on top of your vehicle. This is basically the plot of any horror movie ever. But who knows if it's real, because why would anyone want to go to a road named Devil Worshippers Road in the first place? At our 8th spot, we have the Weeping Woman of Callaway Hall. During the Civil War in Columbus, Mississippi, there were stories of a nurse who started to fall in love with a wounded soldier. After months in her care, the two would share stories and life experiences, but as the soldier started to heal back up, he quickly returned back into battle. He left, and after many years, he never ended up returning back to the woman. The nurse, who was named Mary, was so heartbroken that she ultimately made the decision to take her own life. She did this by jumping off the clock tower in the middle of the night. Now locals claim that her distraught spirit remains by the Callaway Hall tower to this day. The security guards report that their faucets would turn on and off, and these are the faucets with the handles you need to physically turn, not no hand sensor one. And she got her name because she tends to wake up students in the middle of the night by crying at the end of their beds, so just imagine what that would look like. At our number 7 spot, we have McCredis disease. If you look up McCredis online, you won't find much about it. However, if you're from Mississippi, you've probably heard older relatives mention it. Men back in the day and sometimes until now would ingest large amounts of lead, which would make them secrete a chemical and would make the women around them descend into a homicidal rage. For example, women who were the friendliest and happiest would turn into irrational and erratic people. The story started in Europe when a man had an angry mob of women running after him after he ingested a good amount of lead. Finding he couldn't do anything about it, he jumped into the well below freezing river, and with no hesitation, all the girls jumped in and ended up drowning. Then it hit Mississippi when a large group of women became hostile and tried to kill every man in town. I don't know about you, but this is absolutely terrifying, but I'm gonna need more data for this. At number 6 spot, we have Goat Castle. In the August of 1932, Jane Surgic Muriel, better known as Jenny, was found murdered in her home. She had only purchased the home recently, but friends noticed at the moment she got it, she was showing very strange behavior. Many people consider that she was trying to live a hermit lifestyle. By the way, she only had visits from her cousin and suspected lover, Duncan. Shortly after, the two of them would start to have issues with their neighbor, Richard Dana and Octavia Dockery. So when she was found murdered, the police immediately suspected it to be the neighbors, Richard and Octavia. Except when the police went to the couple's home to ask questions, the mansion was in complete disarray and was a complete disaster. Painting was peeling, windows were broken, holes were in the walls, and the house was infested with insects. As well, the house contained live animals, including a goat, hence the name. Eventually, the couple was cleared for murder and allowed to go back into their home, except they would pass away shortly. Now it's said that if you walk into the home, you can see an apparition who is believed to be Jenny, seeking revenge for her murder. Right in the hump of our list, we have McRaven Tour Home. This place is sometimes called Mississippi's most haunted house, and for very good reason. The McRaven Tour Home, located at 1445 Harrison Street in Vicksburg, once served as a Confederate campsite and a makeshift hospital. Supposedly, at least 11 people have been buried on the property ground. Many witnesses have reported seeing all of the ghosts who have been buried on the property. These ghosts include Mary Elizabeth Howard, who died during childbirth in the house in 1836. During the siege of Vicksburg, McRaven was transformed into a makeshift hospital. According to local legend, John H. Bob caught some Union soldiers tampering with his crops, became enraged and threw a brick at one of them, and seeking revenge, the soldiers returned later, and that night they killed Bob, making him the 3rd resident to die at McRaven, which he can also be seen walking around the home to this day. At number 4 spot, we have the Witch of Yazoo gravesite. In the middle of the old historic Glenwood Cemetery, there's a chain link surrounding a grave known as the Witch's Grave. According to local legend, a witch lived on the Yazoo River shoreline. This witch would lure in fishermen to tease and torture them for later. Eventually, the frequency of attacks increased and law enforcement was quickly involved. They eventually caught on to her ways and chased her through the swamps, where she half drowned in quicksand. As she sank down, she swore her revenge on Yazoo City and the townspeople, saying, quote, "In 20 years I will return and burn this town to the ground." No one thought of it at the time, and then came May 25th, 1904. The fire of 1904 destroyed more than 200 residents and nearly every business in Yazoo City, which is around 324 buildings in total. The witches' graves also has these chains around them, but apparently they need to be replaced constantly since they continue to be broken off. Do you think it's a witch, or is it just some people messing around the cemetery? What do you think? At number 3 spot, we have Witch Dance at Natchez Trace. Staying on the topic of witches, the forest trails of Natchez Trace, located in Tupelo, Mississippi, are said to have been a popular meeting spot for witches back in the day. The sign of the area reads Witch Dance. The very name conjures visions of eerie midnights, swirling back capes, and brooms stacked against a nearby tree. The old folks say the witches once gathered here to dance, and that wherever their feet touched the ground, the glass withered and died, never to grow again. Impossible? Maybe so, but look around. Look for a hidden spot where no grass grows. So basically, when you see dead grass, witches are said to have danced there, and some of these barren or scorched spots of the ground can still be seen to this day. At number 2 spot, we have the Chautauqua Monster. This is basically Mississippi's Bigfoot. So according to the Pike County legend, a circus train was going down the old Illinois Central Railroad, and in a sudden turn of events, it derailed in the swamps near Chautauqua. Except this circus was not like any regular circus. It apparently had many strange critters and creatures on board, one of them being a half man, half ape hybrid, which appeared as a large hairy creature. This creature was very hostile and would attack any person or animal that got too close. So a search party was quickly put together to capture this beast, but they left empty-handed and the monster was never seen again. At number 1 spot, we have Robert Johnson and the Crossroads. This is probably the most original story that related crossroads with selling your soul to the devil. So there's that. So for those who don't know the legend, Robert Johnson was a semi-lackluster guitar player until he decided to journey to the crossroads of Highway 49 and 61 in Clarksdale. This is where he famously made a deal with the devil, where he would sell his soul in exchange for a formidable technique and mastery of the blues. His style did a complete 180, and his style took over jazz with its unique flair. Legend has that 3 of his most hauntingly desperate recordings, Crossroad Blues, Hellhounds on My Trail, and Me and the Devil Blues, are a trilogy of his deal with the devil. And guess how old he is when he died? Yup, 27 years old. Coming in at number 10, we have 13 Curves. This is a very dangerous road in Marcellus, New York, named the 13 Curves. Over the past 60 years since its construction, this road claimed the lives of many drivers from unfortunate accidents. None are more notorious than the story of a couple on their wedding day. Drivers claim they see a young woman dressed in a bloody white wedding gown walking along the road looking for her groom. All of the accidents on this road are said to be associated with this one woman, since many of the survivors of these accidents claim that the last thing they saw before crashing was in fact this woman in white. This story is very similar to La Llorona if you guys remember my past videos. That is in the Texas video. How the woman passed away in the first place remains a complete mystery, but some claim that on their wedding night, the couple drove on these winding roads, but on one of the curves, they lost control and ended up in a nearby creek, with both of them passing away. Other drivers claim that they enter into their cars, and many of them become startled and crash when they look in their rearview mirror to see this bloody apparition. At a number 9 spot, we have the Fordham University Spirit Story. Before we begin, scenes from The Exorcist were shot here, so it was probably for good reason since they wanted to shoot a horror film at this university filled with the supernatural. In the summer of 2003, RAs in the place noticed that in one room the beds were propped up rather than lying on the floor. It wasn't until one day an RA awoke from knocking on his door. When he opened it, he saw a Jesuit priest who said he would take care of the mattresses. Except when the RA tried to figure out who the priest was, he discovered that the only Jesuit priest bearing that description had passed away 10 years ago. That's not all the ghosts within this university. It said that the spirit of a little girl who has been seen in the bathrooms is said to lurk and peek behind the shower curtains. Many other students revealed that they had sleep paralysis when inside the dorms, even though they had no such thing prior. Lastly, other students report being woken up due to the feeling of someone grabbing their neck and tugging their legs as if someone wants to drag them. At a number 8 spot, we have Rochester's White Lady. There's a white lady scary urban legend in almost all cultures, so I had to mention one in New York as well. In East Mandarin Park, visitors claim to see a crying woman asking where her daughter is. The story goes that in the early 1800s, a woman named Elisa lived in the area with her farmer husband. After a seemingly good start to their new home in Rochester, tragedy struck when Elisa's daughter suddenly disappeared. The story of her disappearance varies, but the most popular one is that the daughter asked Elisa if she can walk to the lake, but she never ended up returning. Regardless of what version you believe, the result is the same. People see the white lady roam the perimeters of the lake, constantly wailing and asking for the location of her daughter. People claim that she is more aggressive towards men, but appears as more heartfelt and sorrowful for women. This could be because women are more likely to assist her in finding her daughter, but much of it is unknown. At a number 7 spot, we have the White Horse Tavern. This tavern was established all the way way back in 1673, making it America's oldest tavern, as you can see from the sign in the front of the building. During the 18th century, the owner of the bar was reported to be a pirate and rum smuggler, and when the British authorities were hunting for him, he hid out in this tavern during the Revolutionary War and brought in many other soldiers with him, where a lot of them would pass away in that tavern. The most activity in the tavern is said to be located on the second floor in the master bedroom. Story goes that a young girl passed away from smallpox in that room, and many guests hear the little girl singing, and some workers claim they see a little girl running around with a lemon and lime knife looking to attack unsuspecting victims. And remember that pirate owner I mentioned? Yeah, he would end up murdering someone in that very room, but that's all up for speculation still. Regardless, the world's oldest tavern had to have a few of their own ghost stories. At our number 6 spot, we have the Rolling Hills Asylum. Located in East Bethany, New York, this asylum was originally named the Genesee County Poor Farm. A poorhouse is a place where orphan children, families, the elderly, and where physically and mentally handicapped people go. All the people who passed away at the asylum were buried on the property grounds, which led many people to believe to be haunted throughout the entire area. The favorite entity spotted there is called Roy Crouse. The owner had an encounter with Roy the ghost. One day she went in and a rat went across the room. The rat startled her, and then she went to scream and then left the asylum. The next day when she came back, she noticed a rat that startled her was found dead on the stairs with blood oozing out of it. Above that was a bloody handprint, presumably with the blood of the rat. She believes it was Roy helping her, as the rat scared her pretty bad. Right in the hump of our list, we have the Curse of 1940. The Curse of 1940, or the Dutton's Curse, was a hex that was believed to cause NHL's New York Rangers not to win a Stanley Cup between 1941 all up until 1993. For all you non-hockey fans, the New York Rangers were very successful in their early years when they took 3 Stanley Cups, 1928, 1933, and 1940. After a 54-year wait, they won another Stanley Cup in 1994, but many fans believe the reason they haven't touched gold in so long is because of this curse. This was because in the 1939-40 season, the mortgage of the Madison Square Garden, which is the place where the Rangers played, was paid off, which led to management to burn the entire mortgage in the bowl of the cup. This led many to believe that the hockey gods put a curse on them. For example, in the 1950 Stanley Cup Finals, the Rangers had to play in the Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto for their home ice, which could be related to the fact that the MSG burned their mortgage, forcing them to play in another city, hence why they didn't win that year. I know sports curses are not scary at all, but for New York Rangers fans, this is the most terrifying thing they heard all year. At our number 4 spot, we have Palmyra Historical Museum. As the name suggests, this museum is located in Palmyra, New York. This building is thought to be over 200 years old and once served as a tavern and a hotel. It is now open to the public as a museum, but there's a reason why this one is on the list. The story goes that 6 days before Christmas 1964, a fire raged a small home which had Ruth Anna Breeden, her husband Paul, and 6 children inside. It was a supposed flash fire which engulfed the entire house quickly. The husband managed to escape, but the mother and her 6 children were found burnt in the basement underneath a mattress. Although the fire didn't happen in the museum per se, it sits on the home's foundation, meaning the basement is the exact same. This is why many guests claim to catch the scent of ash in the basement, because this is where the woman and her children lost their life. In the museum, guests also report toys being flown off shelves and even feeling their hair and clothes being tugged on. All the way at our number 3 spot, we have Vale Cemetery. After being opened in 1857, the historic Vale Cemetery became the largest cemetery in Schenectady, New York. After many years, guests will report some pretty eerie paranormal activity going on inside the cemetery. Many people had come forward, all reporting the same phenomenon, saying that the statues would bleed from their eyes. It's very important to note that all the people that came forward were not related in any sort of way, making all these accounts really genuine. Other people visiting the cemetery also claim that they've seen figures sitting in the trees above the tombstones, and even full-blown apparitions of crying ghosts. The cemetery now has a total of 33,000 assigned plots, making it a spiritual hub. At our number 2 spot, we have the ghost ship of the Hudson River. Back when New York was just a small village, reports surfaced of a spooky ship floating on the river. Seen at dusk on foggy days, many say it was the spirit of the Henry Hudson's Half Moon ship. One of the reports came from an anonymous source of the weather dork that they referred to as Samuel. He was spending the day fishing on the shore of the Hudson, but then an odd ship caught his gaze. He claimed the ship was floating on air above the water, but as the ship got closer to him, he found that it had no crew on deck and had 3 empty masts. Regardless of the fact that it was floating, the ship could only be heard when it got closer, and the wood would be creaking as if it was on water when it wasn't. Eventually, a storm came and slowly brought the ship back into the river, slowly disappearing into the darkness and the rain. If you listen to this story and get some Flying Dutchman vibes, you're right. All the way at our number 1 spot, we have the Amityville Horror House. It all started with an invitation from a news anchorman in Long Island. All the Warrens knew that there was a tragedy inside of the home, and the owners left after only living at the home for little less than a month. After Ed Warren spoke to the owner of the home, George Lutz, he quickly agreed to have them investigate. George was so horrified by the house that he only left the keys to the house and completely left the area. When the Warrens were in the house, they described feeling a powerful negative energy, calling it, quote, diabolically infested. Ed then entered the basement and felt immediate pressure, which pinned him on the floor. He commanded to Jesus Christ to leave, and it lifted it off of him. This was no regular paranormal case. The Warrens were unaware that 6 people were murdered in that home 7 months ago, where Ronald DeFeo Jr. murdered his entire family in that one night.
Starting off at number 10, the Voodoo Caves. Located in the Beaver Dam Mountains is a pipe known as the Voodoo Caves. According to local lore practitioners of dark magic performed countless rituals inside the pipe, leaving behind an evil residual energy that curses or takes the lives of those who enter. It's believed if anyone within the cave insults Satan or makes any derogatory remarks about the entity that lurks there, they will find themselves trapped inside by rising water. The malevolent force got the blame for the passing of a worker who went inside the underground pipe to remove a clog when he got pinned down and drowned. Now at number 9, Bear Lake Monster. The urban legend of the Bear Lake Monster goes back to at least 1868, when desert news reporter Joseph C. Rich ran a series about the serpent-like creature. The series quoted many well-known citizens who all claimed they'd seen the monster. However, in 1888, Mr. Rich admitted that he'd made all the stories up. The legend continues, however. Every so often, someone does claim they have seen the Bear Lake creature, which coincidentally resembles the Loch Ness Monster legend in Scotland. Here at number 8, the legend of Lillian Gray. In the middle of Salt Lake City Cemetery sits a gravestone reading Lily E. Gray, June 6, 1881 to November 14, 1958. Accompanied by the very ominous phrase, "Victim of the Beast 666. Lillian remains a mystery, and her headstone forms the source of wild tales of her being a sacrifice to Satan, or that she herself was a Satanist. Some have speculated that she was another innocent woman accused of witchcraft. Another theory, because Utah is clearly full of ominous places, proposes she died on Highway 666, which is also one of the country's most infamously dangerous freeways. Coming in at number 7, Skinwalker Ranch. The Sherman Ranch in Ballard, Utah is better known to locals and paranormal investigators as the Skinwalker Ranch, or the UFO Ranch. The name comes from the alarming number of alleged skinwalker sightings and reports of paranormal and UFO-related phenomena. The 40-acre ranch borders the Indian reservation and has a history of mutilated cattle, spirit orbs, unidentified objects hovering in the sky, and what's been described as a large, red-eyed beast similar to the Native American depictions of skinwalkers, half-human, half-animal monstrosities. Now coming in at number 6, the ghost of Red Lopez. In early 1915, Bingham miners began hearing a voice, supposedly the ghost of Raphael Red Lopez. According to an article in the February 2nd, 1915 edition of the Ogden Daily Standard, Lopez was a miner who shot and took the life of another miner in November 1913. He also reportedly took the life of Bingham's police chief and 2 sheriff deputies in an ambush later that day. A week later, he then reportedly took the lives of 2 other deputies during a manhunt for him that lasted into 1914. But Lopez was never found or heard from again in Utah. It's still one of the state's largest crime mysteries that wasn't closed until 2003. Back in 1915, the report stated that the workers began to be terrorized during the past few days by the shoutings of a gloomy voice in an area of the mine where 2 of the deputies passed away. Halfway at number 5, teen in a tanning bed. The urban legend about the bride cooking herself in a tanning bed circulated all over the country, but it allegedly originated in Utah with a teenage girl. The story begins with a 17-year-old winning a trip to Hawaii, and naturally she wanted to get bronzed before her trip. Though limits exist for how long and how often you can sit in these tanning beds, the girl, however, supposedly found a way around this rule by hopping around town to town to different salons, 4 to be exact, in just one afternoon. She eventually ended up in Utah Valley Regional Medical Center because her internal organs were shutting down and she went blind from cooking herself all day. Now, a reminder, this one is just an urban legend. Now at number 4, the Lady in Purple. Over the years, many people have claimed to have seen a woman dressed in purple who appears angry or unhappy inside the Rio Grande Depot in Salt Lake City. In 2017, Rio Grande Cafe manager Colleen Murphy told KSL-TV she has seen lights come on at night in a locked room at the bottom of a stairwell with nobody seemingly there to turn them on. She also said that she had been locked out of the building on multiple occasions late at night, with no real explanation. Others have told her they've heard singing at night, coming from the woman's bathroom in the depot, even when the building is seemingly empty. As the legend goes, the woman tossed her engagement ring onto the tracks during an argument with her fiancé at the depot. Deciding she had made a mistake, she jumped down to retrieve the ring when she was struck and unfortunately passed away by an oncoming train. Now at number 3, the inmate. Salt Lake Herald-Republican on January 8, 1905 reported a frightening tale from the Salt Lake City jail. 2 women at the jail reported they had seen a ghost there, walking the halls at night. The ghost was a man who wore a slouch hat pulled over his eyes and would peer through the grating in the building. They told the newspaper that the ghost was that of a former inmate who had died there in a gruesome manner. On one particular night, one of the women said that she heard a ghost noise by a door, then walked up and asked if it was indeed the dead inmate. "Ain't you dead?" she asked. By way of reply, the ghost began to prance up and down the narrow hallway, swinging his arms and smiling, laughing, and shaking his head. While they never saw the man the day he died, they told the newspaper they were convinced it was him. Now at number 2, the Devil's Highway, kinda like what we mentioned before. The highway system, originally named Route 666 and nicknamed the Devil's Highway, crossed through an area of the United States known as the Four Corners, the meeting space of Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah. All 4 states have reported paranormal experiences while on this stretch of highway. Tales range from hellhounds chasing alongside cars and slashing tires to skinwalkers shifting from animal to man before their very eyes, to an evil shaman who appears in the backseat to steal the driver's soul. Like many roads, Highway 666 also hosts a ghostly hitchhiker, a mysterious young woman in a nightgown walking the road alone. When someone tries to offer her a ride, she vanishes. A popular legend attached to the Devil's Highway is that of a mad trucker, a phantom semi-truck that terrorizes late-night drivers before disappearing. One witness reported her husband's experience. Allegedly, he was driving on Route 666 one night when a semi-truck began heading straight for him down the middle of the highway. He said the truck had to have been going around 130 miles per hour, with sparks and flames flying up from the wheels. He pulled off the road in time to miss what he thought would be a fiery collision, and the beast of a vehicle took off into the night. Now coming in at number 1, the haunted Old Main. Everyone who's passed through the Southern Utah University campus has heard the lore of Virginia Loomis and Old Main, a building on the university's campus. As the legend goes, Virginia Loomis's life was taken in the late 1800s. Her body was discovered on the boulder used to make many of the bricks to construct the Cedar City building in 1898. It's said some of the bricks even contain her blood. Later in life, a janitor was hired at the university. On his first day of work, he was allegedly lighting the old coal furnace in Old Main's basement when something caused the furnace door to slam shut on his arm. He was supposedly burned until he passed away, unable to get free, becoming the human torch that burned Old Main to the ground in 1948. It's said that the ghost of Virginia was seen laughing in the flames, and Virginia was written on the janitor's skull.
At our number 10 spot, we have the Candy Lady. In the early 1900s, children in the rural town of Terrell, Texas started to go missing. Some of the residents blamed it on the Candy Lady. The story says that she would go around leaving candy on children's home windows just before bedtime. As the parents began to fall asleep, it'll encourage children to grab the candy, but as they try to grab it, the lady grabs them and feasts on their sugar-laden blood until there isn't any left. A farmer allegedly found rotten teeth on his farm and later found the body of a boy with his pockets stuffed with candy. Many people believe that Candy Lady is in fact real and went by the name of Clara Crane. Clara Crane was accused of poisoning her husband back in 1895 with poison-laced caramel candies, but that's not all. 5 years before the incident, Crane's 5-year-old daughter passed away from unknown causes, which many believe that she poisoned her daughter as well. At a number 9 spot, we have La Llorona. This legend originates from El Paso, Texas. Almost all Latin cultures know the story of La Llorona, and the people of El Paso are no exception to that. La Llorona directly translates to the weeping woman, which perfectly describes the behavior of this malevolent spirit. She is said to haunt the riverbanks of the Rio Grande, where she is searching for her 2 children whom she had already drowned in that very river. Now there are many iterations of the story, but I'll just mention the most popular one. The legend goes that a lady found her boyfriend with another woman. After a heated argument between the two, the woman was heartbroken and wanted to get revenge, so she took the children and proceeded to drown them in the Rio Grande River in Texas. It's also said that when she was done throwing her children into the river, she went back to her lover's home home with a bloody wedding gown, showing her she would do whatever it took to be with him. It's said to be the reason why many children disappear in that very area, and she supposedly takes other children to fill the void she lost. So if you're in the area, beware of a woman weeping in a wedding gown who is sitting by the Rio Grande. At a number 8 spot of El Cucuy. This creature is known as South Texas' official boogeyman. There are many versions of El Cucuy since it already originates in Mexico as well. It's said that this monster kidnaps children who misbehave and takes them back to the mountain where he lives to devour them. He appears as a hairless creature with an enormous head that dwarfs his spider-like body. He also has these large red glowing eyes, red ears to hear everything, and razor sharp fangs and claws to accompany that. The origin of El Cucuy goes that a man was suffering with tuberculosis. Desperate to cure himself, he fetched an African witch doctor. The doctor told him to drink a child's blood, but as he did, he started to turn into the monster described. Ever since, he has a never-ending thirst for children's blood. At our number 7, we have the Screaming Bridge. In North Arlington, Texas, 50 years ago, there was a group of teenage girls driving home from a football game. The bridge was designed to only fit one car at a time, and I know, what a dumb bridge, but this was in the past and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. The girls weren't paying attention and went full speed over the bridge until a car with no headlights struck them head on, with all of the girls passing away. Some say when they go near the bridge, they can hear the distant screams sounding like the girls before they passed away. As well, if you go over the bridge and look down at the water below, you can see the tombstones of all the girls with their names and birthdays written on it. At number 6 spot, we have the Goatman's Bridge. Why are there so many haunted bridges? Like, I don't get it. But in Denton County, Texas, lies the Goatman's Bridge, which was built in 1884. This bridge is supposedly haunted by the ghost of the Goatman. The story goes that a black goat farmer named Oscar Washburn was renowned for quality meat, milk, and cheeses, and then he moved with his family just north of the bridge. Except when he arrived in this area, he was instantly the target of racial hate crime. The racist townfolk came together and burned down the farm with the family inside. They then threw Oscar's body over that very bridge. Now he appears as a half goat, half man humanoid that reeks of decaying flesh. If you knock on the bridge 3 times, it said that you can summon the Goatman, but now others use this area for rituals and other supernatural activities. Right in the hump of our list, we have the Lady of White Rock Lake. The lake is located in Dallas, Texas, and many visitors claim that they spot a drenched young woman who appears crawling out of the water or asking to fetch a ride. When many people offer her this ride, she disappears out of thin air and leaves a bloody wet seat mark and a terrified driver. Even though many of the drivers were scared to their core, some decide to go to the address given to them by the girl. When they arrive at the door, they're all met by the same man who tells them that his daughter had gone sailing and never came back. Many people believe the story is inspired by the 1953 book Neiman Marcus, Texas, the story of the Proud Dallas Store, and according to the book, Malloy and his wife are driving home late one night in East Dallas when a young, beautiful blonde girl ghost appears on the road. Her elegant dresses is naturally wet and she seems to be in trouble. She gives them an address on Gaston Avenue and asks them to be taken home, but as they drive, she disappears, leaving only a mark. At our number 4 spot, we have the Lake Worth Monster. You just learned about the Goatman, right? Well, this is basically the Goatman, but of the lake. This monster terrorized the people of the town for years, with many describing the creature as being 7 feet tall, around 300 pounds, long-necked, flop-eared, pot-bellied, covered in white scales and hair. I swear I just described Shaquille O'Neal. The monster was supposedly captured on camera, but you guys be the judge of that one. It looks like a 2-year-old drew on a camera lens on a potato with a crayon and then took this photo. But who knows, it might be real. This beast was inspired by Sally Ann Clark's book, The Lake Worth Monster of Greer Lake, Fort Worth, Texas. In the book, the monster jumped on the hood of someone's car and shook up the car so badly that they got caught in a bad accident. The people described it being a 7 feet tall being covered in scales and fur and resembled a half goat and half man. Pretty scary if you ask me. All the way at our number 3 spot, we have the Donkey Lady. The Donkey Lady of San Antonio, Texas dates all the way back in the late 1800s. The Donkey Lady was once a beautiful woman with children and a husband, but one day in a rage, the husband burned down the house with the children and wife still inside. The children passed away, but however, the wife managed to survive, but suffered greatly from this. Her toes and fingers would be fused together in a hoove-like way, and her face was melted and sagging, inspiring the Donkey Lady name. There's a bridge in South San Antonio named the Old Applewhite Bridge, or the Donkey Lady Bridge. This is the bridge she went to crown after this horrible tragedy. Now it's said if you go to the bridge after midnight and call out the Donkey Lady, she will appear just before you. Some have claimed she had run at people who call out her name, or sometimes just stalks in the forest line waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. At number 2 spot, we have the girl who danced dance with the devil. The story takes place in the 1970s in San Antonio, Texas, with a young Mexican girl named Rosa. One day the girl wanted to attend a dance at a nearby nightclub named the El Cabroncito. However, the parents were very strict and didn't want her anywhere near the nightclub. Despite their orders, she snuck out of her house and traveled all the way to the nightclub where she could finally have her dance. At the club, Rosa was approached by this very tall, charming, and well-dressed man who asked her permission to dance. When they began dancing, Rosa was terrified when she discovered he had goat hooves instead of feet. When she screamed in terror, people in the club started to chase him out, but as he got close, he vanished out of thin air, leaving a trail of smoke and the smell of sulfur. Devil activity if that wasn't enough. It's said that the area surrounding the nightclub still smells of sulfur to this day. At a number 1 spot with El Muerto. El Muerto, otherwise known as the Headless Horseman of Texas, is a Texas legend that dates all the way back in the mid-1800s. The story goes that 2 rangers, Creed Taylor and William Bigfoot Wallace, were hunting a criminal known as Vidal along the Mexican border. Vidal had been wreaking havoc all across the state of Texas, so when the ranger caught them, they wanted to set an example. So they did just that and cut his head clean off. They then tied his head to the saddle and sent his horse with the headless body running off into the night. Now the horse continued to explore the region with its headless rider. The tale of El Muerto began to grow after it was reported that both had been seen numerous times and that gunshots had no impact on either of them. Spotting El Muerto was thought to foreshadow bad luck because everyone who claimed to have seen him was struck with a series of bad luck and poor health following it.